So we're on episode 2 of the Her Handmade Hustle Unplugged podcast. Thanks to everybody who listened to my first podcast. I really didn't expect you all to give up 40 minutes of your time. I know how precious time is. And I'm so grateful. It's really, I've had such lovely feedback and it really validated my decision to do this and to help, people in this way. And I think it's just proof as well that, we're all getting a bit sick of how social media is just so fleeting. Whereas, with the podcast, even I do it, you can just sit and listen and switch off to that one person's voice, and enjoy spending that time with them if it's something that you want to hear as well. So I'm so grateful, honestly, for everyone that's listening. And I kind of feel a bit of pressure now to make this one just as good. So I'm hoping I can do it. And I really just want you to enjoy every single episode. They'll all be different. But hopefully they'll give you something that you can use at the end of them as well. So today, what we're talking about, okay, so a lot of stuff that has come to light when I've been chatting to female entrepreneurs over the last probably couple of months, is this feeling of just not being good enough or not feeling worthy enough to run a successful business. There's sometimes people are telling me that they just don't feel good enough at what they do to make a living out of it. They don't know enough, they're not skilled enough to be charging people actual money for something that they've made. You tell themselves things like, oh, we can't do that, no one will pay for it. Not when they can get something similar, maybe from a person who's established or popular or who's got like 20,000 followers on Instagram. But what we have to ask ourselves is that instead of saying, who am I to start a business and start charging people for what I do? Well, who are you not to? Who says that you can't do this? If you have got a talent or a skill that you know that you are good at and you want to get out there to show people, who's going to tell you otherwise? The only thing that I can say is, I don't know if you've watched Sex and the City. It used to be one of my favourite programmes. There's a woman in it. And she used to play the character in American Pie, the MILF woman. Anyway, she has a really bad breakup. And she decides that she's going to start a career designing handbags. So, they're the most hideous things that you've ever seen. And one of the characters, Samantha, says at one point when she sees them, someone should go and tell Crazy, that's what she calls her. Someone should go and tell Crazy that owning a glue gun doesn't automatically make you a handbag designer. And it always makes me laugh because, you obviously got to have some talent in order to make money out of, your passion. But I am almost 100% sure that no one listening to this is like her. No one. And even if you are, I love a trier. And I believe anyone can do anything if you're determined enough. So, like I said, who are you not to do it? If you know that you've got a talent or a skill doing something, whether it's baking or sewing or painting, maybe you're good at solving problems, I don't know, anything, you've got a good listening ear, you might love upcycling. You can share it with the world and you can be successful. Because think about it, right? The world is massive and you don't need everybody in the world to want your stuff or your services. You just need a tiny proportion of the planet's population to love what you do. And I mean, love it hard, this sort of always wanting to see what you've got coming up next, ready to purchase. You want that audience of people that love you so that you can make this into a viable business. So this feeling, like I was saying, of not being good enough or not being worthy enough, there's a name for it. And it's a strange psychological phenomenon, but it does actually haunt female entrepreneurs. And I say mainly female because it is, and I'll explain why shortly. You might have heard of it, you might not have heard of it, but for anyone that does feel like what I've just described, know that it's a 100% real and valid, and it's called Imposter Syndrome. So I think in my last podcast, I mentioned how I got a psychology degree. And I kind of regretted it because I never actually ended up using it. Well, fast forward 20 years, here we are. Going to be talking a little bit about imposter syndrome today and what is it and why does it make us feel like that and why do we have it and carry it around with us and why does it burden us and stop us from doing the things that we want to do. So, yeah, I'm going to put my psychology degree to use today. And obviously, I feel good to know that it's going to justify £6,000 worth of student debt, that I got myself into, which I still haven't paid back because I'm secretly hoping that maybe it'll get written off one day by the time I'm a pensioner. That's the hope. So, okay, what exactly is imposter syndrome? Well, it's basically when a person constantly doubts their abilities to be successful. Or, you've got a persistent inability to believe that you deserve success because you're not as competent or as skillful or as intelligent as others. And it's actually more common in women, like I said, and particularly female entrepreneurs, because we just enter this whole cycle of self-doubt and anxiety. We're like overthinkers with everything, I know that I am probably the worst for overthinking. It can be absolutely anything. It can be, something really major, like a major decision in my life, down to, what I'm going to have for my tea that night. I never used to be like this, but as I've got older, I just feel like I'm overthinking everything more and more. And as an entrepreneur and someone, especially a creative one, it can stop us from ever progressing our businesses or even starting them in the first place, which is such a shame. It's just fear. It's 100% fear. And what we have to do is just learn to let it go. Now, I'm 14 years into obviously running my own business, and I had a bad case of imposter syndrome back in probably 2013 when I was about 3 years into running Vintage Twee. Everything was fine. I was getting myself established. I was really happy and confident with what I was doing. I could see the business growing. And then I met this wedding stationer who, excuse me, was doing something similar to me and my style, and it was all vintage themed. But she was way more successful, like ridiculously more successful. I think at one point she told me she was making like £1,000 a week just on the high street, without her other channels that she had, and she was like selling in shops, and she had collaborations with like other cool stationery designers, and like there was like a waiting list of her wedding invites. And she started like 2 years after me, and she was doing way better. And I knew she wasn't lying because I'd been to her studio, I'd seen all her orders piled up, and she also was a really decent girl, to be fair, and she was pretty humble about it. But my God, did it annoy me. Like, she'd done nothing wrong, but I was just getting so frustrated all the time. Probably for about 2 years this lasted. And it just really got under my skin. And, I'd constantly be checking her socials, website, see what she was up to next. And then I was just getting more and more deflated and depressed because I was just nowhere near selling the amount that she was. And when I wrote this podcast, I actually said in it that, I didn't know what she was doing now because I don't look anymore, because I don't need to stalk her. I don't want to stalk her. Well, curiosity killed the cat. I dived back in at lunchtime today. I had a quick look what she was doing. Kind of regret it. Turns out now that, what did she say she was doing? Oh, she was a CEO of some stationery company. She had, what was it? She was on Amazon. She had some books out. I was like, right, let's close that tab. I don't need to read any more of that. So I shut that down really quickly. But that was purely for research purposes for this podcast, so I could tell you. But, at the end of the day, I'm on Amazon now. I'm on Audible, so there you go. But I'm not comparing. Anyway, so she had this amazing studio, right, that she could afford to rent out on top of a mortgage payment as well, which was unheard of to me at the time. I thought, God, how is she doing that? And the studio, it was all white. And it had like vintage prints everywhere. It had all pink stationery accessories, 2 computers, 2 monitors, so she could, enhance her design and experience. And I remember just walking in and being really jealous of like this pink kettle that she had in the corner with where she made her guests cups of tea, obviously. And she had these Cath Kidston cups. Everything was matching. I just remember feeling really jealous and like really unsuccessful. And I was 3 years in, and I'd only just moved into my little bachelorette pad. Now I was single again after my American experience. I had a single table in my lounge where I worked from. Had a few fairy lights around it, that I bought during a trip to see my sister after I was back from America. She'd moved to London a couple of years prior. I remember that she took me to this vintage market, and I just saw these lights, and I thought, oh, they're really sweet. I'm going to put these in my new home one day when I get it. So I bought them, and then I put them away until the day came, which it did. anyway, the point is that, I was constantly comparing myself to this girl. And I even sat there one night and I was trying to work out if I could afford a unit to work from. I even went to see a couple near where I lived, but I couldn't even afford my own rent at the time. So I was being totally unrealistic. And I was just letting this imposter syndrome veer me off course in my journey to success, because, that's what it is at the end of the day. It's your own journey. It's nobody else's. It's never going to be the same as theirs. And it shouldn't be, because that's their life plan and you've got your own. So, we've got to stop comparing ourselves to other people. And it's like human nature. I know that we do it. It's a really bad habit, but you really have to try and channel your thoughts on exactly what it is that you're doing, and put the blinkers on and ignore everybody else, because it is a waste of time. So, why do we do it? And like I said before, I think it just comes down to one main thing, and that's fear. We're fearful of failure. We're scared of actually trying something in the first place. And, we make excuses. And when we make excuses, we don't take any action. And then when we don't take the action, we're not getting the results. And then we fail. And then we go, oh, see, I told you so. And then we don't do it. So we're talking ourselves out of stuff that we're scared to do. And one of the reasons why we do this is because the human mind, it doesn't like to process uncertainty. It just doesn't like it. It likes predictability. It likes to know what's coming next. And we're wired for our brains just to take the easiest path of thinking and reasoning and automatic action, which is almost always something we've done before. And, that's why we get in these habits of just doing the same behaviours all the time without trying anything new. But, you have to think to yourself, how can you ever bring change into your life and reap the rewards if you don't challenge yourself? And, for our brains, and just push our brains outside of the comfort zone. And it's like that saying goes, which I really love this saying, and, print it out, put it somewhere that you can see it. I've got it in my office, and it says, if you want something you've never had, you've got to do something you've never done. And it's so true. We have to take these chances and we have to take these risks. So whether you're just starting out on this business journey or you're trying to grow, but you're feeling a bit stuck, you really have to push beyond what you would normally do in order to get to where you want to be. So my mum always used to come out with some real bangers, honestly. Like, she had some great quotes, but she was always pretty much right, which was really annoying. And she had some really valid points. One of them that probably wasn't so valid was when me and my sister were teenagers, we were like really weight conscious, like you are when you're young women, unfortunately. And she used to go out every day to the local bakery and she'd buy a cake for us all for after our tea. It used to be a vanilla slice or an ice finger or a fairy bun from Greg's, something like that. And she'd bring it out like really proud after every meal and say, oh, I've got you a cake. So me and my sister sometimes would we're like, oh, Mum, we're on a diet, stop buying us cakes. And she'd be like, she used to say, don't be silly, you can have that, even though it's like an enormous piece of cake. It's only light. Yes, it is only light, Mum, but it's not a valid point. It's just, you've got to, basically what I'm trying to say is that, one of the things that you have to tell yourself all the time is that you can do this. Okay? You can. Who's to say you can't? All right? And thinking about it now, I don't know what the point of the cake story was. I just like telling it. But that was one of her true statements, okay? Sorry, not her invalid statements, but one of the most true statements that she told me when I was going through my childhood bullying days, when I was bullied quite badly and I was so low in confidence. And she says to me, Joanne, your mind is a powerful thing. Don't let it win. And she was right. When we feel these overpowering feelings of like self-doubt and inadequacy, we've got to push through them, because we start the negative self-talk and we're convincing ourselves that we're not skilled enough, or, we're procrastinating a lot because we wonder if we can actually do this. So we keep putting it off and delaying decisions. You're nodding, aren't you? You know exactly what I mean. It's like, oh, I'll just put that off. I can't do it. Oh, it's too much hard work. I haven't got time. Maybe you're striving for perfectionism. That one's me. I'm terrible for getting things perfect before I start anything. And that delays me. And, and then you never get anything done. And you never feel good enough to charge people, God forbid, make a profit. God, what if I charge somebody for my work and I actually make some money? It's something about us that we're all scared of making money, and we shouldn't be. And again, unfortunately, it is a feature of female entrepreneurs, because men don't think like this. Men are very black and white, like, this is the cost, take it or leave it. With women, we're completely different. We think about it, we think how we're going to pitch it, we wonder if we're giving enough value to somebody. We overthink everything, and as a result, it just doesn't get done. And as a result, there are like so many less women in positions of power, like CEOs or even billionaires. There's less women than men. And, we overthink things too much. So that has to change if you want to make some money. And all those things that I just mentioned, they're all signs and symptoms of imposter syndrome, all of them. And we've all got them to a certain degree. But the difference is, like my mum said, not letting your mind win and tell you that you can't do this because, you're not like so-and-so, or you don't have a lot of followers on social media. So it's essential to beat these feelings that come with imposter syndrome if you want to run a successful and thriving business. So it's all okay, talking about that and saying what it is and how it makes us feel. But, how do we actually break free from this thing that I'm calling this entrepreneurial plague? Because it plagues us all. So even me now, I still get it. Before I started this podcast, right, I thought about it. But actually, it was probably the quickest decision that I've ever made. And I thought to myself, I fancy doing that. After listening to a few other podcasters, I thought, I'll give it a go. And that afternoon, I recorded my first episode, and then I got it out there that night. And that was probably the quickest I've ever done it, but it was action. And I thought, if I think about this too long, I'm not going to do it. And it's not going to be perfect. I'm probably going to say things, that I don't actually know what I'm talking about, or people are going to say, what's she on about, like the cake story of my mum's that just came out. It's going to happen. You're talking into a recorder, it's weird, you're trying to be natural as you can, but you're conscious that people are listening to you at the end of the day. So the best thing to do is just do it, even if it's not right and it's a little bit messy. Just do it, because that's where you start. So we're going to talk a little bit about a few things that you can do to help you overcome this imposter syndrome that is plaguing us. Even if you only have elements of it, you may recognise some of the things that I've talked about in your behaviour. So the first thing you can do is build yourself like a support network of like-minded people, who are going to encourage you, support you, and provide validation for what you're doing. So even listening to this podcast, so there's other podcasts out there as well. I'm signed up to quite a few of them that I really like listening to, and I've got in the habit now of doing it pretty much every day while I'm working and my daughter's at nursery and I've got this time. I listen to them and I'm really enjoying them. I'm investing that time and it's making a difference to me in my attitude and my outlook, because I'm listening to women that are in the same position as me or are cheering me on as well. They don't know me, just like I don't know a lot of you, but I really hope that through this podcast you do feel like you know me more, and you can understand where I'm coming from and you enjoy listening to the things I've got to say. So being parts of these groups, they will help you feel better and more positive because you're around like-minded people. If you're part of my Facebook group, which is for creative female entrepreneurs, totally free, you're welcome to join. But there's loads of women in there, including me. I'm always chatting away in there and posting something every day, probably making people turn off the notifications about the group because there's always something popping up about that I'm saying. But there's loads of women in there who will gladly cheer you on, and they'll give you all the encouragement that you need to try and beat or overcome this imposter syndrome. Everyone is so lovely. So I don't know if you've ever heard of that saying that states that you become like the people that you spend time with. It is so true. And that goes for anyone. If you're a married couple, you hear stories about you turning into each other. Friends, if you spend a lot of time with one of your friends, you can become so in sync, and you can become like, you've been separated at birth, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But you need to get rid of these negative energies and people who don't fuel your enthusiasm for what it is that you're doing, who don't believe in you. Get rid of them. You don't need them in your life. You need the people who are going to tell you that you can do this, Not that you're asking for that validation, but it helps channel in your mind, if you're surrounded by positivity, that it's something that you can do. So focus on these people who cheer you on and want to see you succeed. After when my mum got poorly and just before she passed away, I saw a bereavement counsellor. And I remember her telling me something, and it's always stuck in my head. And I can't remember what it was that we were talking about, but it's a great piece of wisdom. And I'm going to tell you what it is. You're welcome. So she said to me, there's two types of people in this world, Joanne. She said there's drains and radiators. And she told me that the drains are the people that suck all your energy and your optimism out of you. I like to call these the Debbie Downers or the negative Nellies. And they're the people that just really drag you down and you just feel completely out of energy when you've been around them. Those are the drains. And then she said the radiators are the people who warm your soul. You're attracted to them and their warmth and their light, and like they radiate their positivity and their encouragement in abundance to you. She said, that's the radiators, and they're the people that are rooting for you no matter what you do. And she said, you've got to ditch the drains and you've got to stay close to the radiators. And I always think of this whenever I'm around people. I'm quite a good judge of character, and if there's somebody who I feel could be a drain on me, or the opposite, that I'm getting a lot from, a lot of warmth, a lot of encouragement, I'll stick with them. And it's about sort of analysing those people when they come into your life. You already have people who I'm sure that you can immediately categorise into the drains and the radiators, but when you meet new people, you can use that analogy and try and think about the sorts of people that you want around you to help breed that confidence and beat this imposter syndrome if it ever does rear its ugly head. So that's one thing that you can do. And another thing that you can do, is you can recognise your achievements and what you've achieved already. So make a list of your accomplishments. Remind yourself what you've already done, no matter how big or small. Be proud of them. You could have opened up a Facebook business page. Well done. Like, that's a massive step. You could have done a craft fair. Huge. Like, that takes a lot of guts to get out there and do fairs and speak face to face to people. If you're offering a service, then you could have put some flyers out. You could have approached people, see if they're interested. Anything. You could have set up a website, designed a business card. It's all an achievement, and it's also small steps into getting to the bigger goal, because you can't get there without those small steps. You've got to build this path, this runway, so you can take off. And in order to do that, you have to make these little steps to get to the end and fly. So another thing you can do is reframe your thoughts. So instead of thinking about how many things you don't know how to do, like, I don't know how to, I can't do this because I don't know how the postage works, so I can't post stuff out. I don't know which boxes to pack things in. Maybe I don't know enough about sewing and I can't teach it. Anything, okay? Think about the things that you do know and write them down. You can tell that I love a list. I'm always saying to people to write things down. I've got 100 notepads. People that know me, I have a different notepad for every different idea or project or topic, whatever I'm thinking about. It's crazy. It's a bit of an obsession, but it works. So, write down the things that you are good at and that you do know how to do. And there'll be plenty of them. So mine, I feel for me, I'm good at taking someone's vision and turning it into a physical product, like their wedding stationery. They come to me, they tell me that they like this colour and that theme, and I put it together and I make some stationery out of it. I'm also good at getting shit done. I'm a doer. Okay, I like to take action. I like to help people get things done as well. Very much a doer. For you, maybe you're really good at explaining things. So you'd be perfect starting a business, helping people with things that they're struggling with. Or maybe you're really organised, or a bit nosy as well, and you'd just be brilliant at being one of those people that go into other people's homes and, rifle through all their stuff and sort it out for them and organise it. I always want to be one of those people. I never actually quite went down that road, but I think I would be good at home organising. No more negative self-talking. Okay, that has got to stop. Think about what you're good at and what you can do. Also, you've got to remember that you are human. Okay, to beat this imposter syndrome, to stop feeling not good enough, remember you are human. You're going to make mistakes. My God, I have made enough mistakes in business and I still do. Last year it was just mental with Christmas orders. It was crazy. And, I ended up getting really confused. I put the wrong things in the wrong envelopes and I had about 6 customers that were emailing me all at different points within the same week saying they got someone else's order. Then I had to contact that person and find out whose order they got. So it was this trail of mistakes that I'd made, whether 6 or 7 people or whatever had not received the right order. So I had to sort that out and make sure they got, all replacements sent. And I did it. It was a mistake, I owned it. But it's just a normal part of entrepreneurship. So just give yourself a massive break. You've got to remember just to be you. No one else is going to do it the way that you do it. So even if you're in the same industry, okay, and you've got somebody in your town who you're competing against, or you've got the same customers, let's just say that they're never going to do it like you. Okay, so if you make cakes, no one is ever going to make that cake taste or look exactly like you. They're not going to package it the same, or they're not going to give the same customer experience. So when you think about it, you can actually never be an imposter because there's no other you. Which leads me perfectly onto the next point, which is about how you can get over these feelings of not being good enough. And that is, don't compare. So don't do what I did and waste 2 years stalking someone who I was never going to be like, because it just wasn't my journey. Stop scrolling Facebook and Instagram, looking at how well everyone else is seemingly doing, because, 9 times out of 10 they aren't. It's just completely false. It's just there for social media. I've had conversations with people in the past who have putting things all over social media. These are people that I know. And then they're coming to me and saying that, gosh, they're so quiet. They've not got any business. So what they're putting out there is not always a true reflection of what is happening behind the scenes. And if it bugs you that much, like it does me sometimes, just unfollow them. I've done it with a few companies recently who've just been really irritating me, and I've just got rid of them and I've snoozed them. Focus on you, because it is about you. It's not about them. All right. And you need to remember that. And finally, one of the most empowering things I think you can do to try and eliminate this imposter syndrome is embrace your power and your courage. So remember, right, you've started a business, okay? Or you're thinking about it. And, otherwise you would be listening to me drone on for, past half hour or whatever it's been. Do you know how much courage it takes to actually do that? It takes a lot, okay? It's such an uncertain route, especially at the beginning. And it takes a lot of courage to take that plunge and say, are you going to do this? So give yourself credit for that. And, when I'm feeling inadequate or I'm anxious, or when I've not made enough money that week or month to contribute to the bills account, or, and I'm feeling unsuccessful, I remind myself that actually it takes a really strong woman with unwavering faith to be self-employed. When you're self-employed, you live on a wing and a prayer some months. In fact, actually day to day, because there's no security, there's no assurance, there's no knowing what and if you're going to make any money. When your phone beeps and an order comes in, brilliant. Some days Christmas at the moment is good for me. I'm getting quite a lot of orders every day. Come January, all that will stop. I'll be panicking about bills. It's just these peaks and troughs are just normal parts of self-employment. And it takes a brave woman to do it. It really does. So give yourself credit for that. It takes a lot of resilience to run a business, to really put everything you've got into it, because that's what you do, when you run a business. It's your baby. You put everything you've got into this business because you want it to succeed. And if you're not putting everything into it, then the likelihood is you probably won't succeed. So you've got to be all in if you're going to do this. So you need to celebrate the qualities that you've got and embrace your power as an entrepreneur, because you've got it inside you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing or thinking about it anyway. So I just want to tell you a quick story before I wrap this podcast episode up. And it's about a businesswoman who I don't think ever had a case of imposter syndrome in her life. And she serves as a really good example to finish up this podcast episode. I'm going to tell you about her. She owned a corner shop, okay, in a really rough part of inner city Manchester. And this corner shop was the hive of activity for the local residents, right? So everybody used to go in it. Everyone wanted to talk to her. She was the most popular shop owner in the area. She knew everybody. She knew all the residents, the customers that came in. They loved her. And her shop always looked so amazing. It was fully stocked all the time. She just had this presence about her that drew people in. And she had this steady stream of loyal customers for, probably 30 odd years, maybe longer. She was a really strong Jewish woman, and she was as bossy and as direct as she was kind and loving. She had 2 granddaughters, and she used to let them help themselves in her shop. So these trays of pick and mix, she had the most amazing pick and mix that were always fully stocked. They looked so colourful. And she used to say to them when they visit on a Sunday, fill up your little paper bags. And they would. And they'd fill them up until they burst. And she never said anything. Just let them go wild, okay? And she even let them serve her customers when they were a little bit older, and she let them work on the till, which is one of their favourite things to do. She took absolutely no shit from anyone, honestly. And even when people moved into the area and they started opening up other shops that were in direct competition with her, she kept going. She never felt inferior. She was just confident in her ability to run this shop. And she knew that what she was offering to her customers was unique, What she was offering to them was her. And they came in for the conversation and her amazing selection of deli meats and to see her grandchildren work on the till. And she never tried to be anyone else at all. And then, unfortunately, she suffered from really ill health. She had severe emphysema, and her health just got worse and worse. And that took her away from her life's love, which was a corner shop, and it was an unfortunate event one evening when she must have been in her late 60s, and she was open late because she wanted to serve the community, and be there for them when they wanted to get things later on in the evening. And she was held up at knife point by some masked youths, and they robbed her store. And they took all her alcohol, and they took her cigarettes, and they ran off. And she was absolutely terrified. And that episode alone, it forced her to sell her shop for peanuts, because she was fearful of her life, and her family were fearful of her life, and they just wanted to get her out of there, And the area was getting worse. It was getting rougher and rougher. And the thing is, if it happened again, she may not have been as lucky. So she left it all behind, and now that site that shop was on has been bulldozed. There's been new houses that have been built there on the site of the shop. And her name was Phyllis. And she was actually my grandma. And she was the most hardworking, determined, resilient, kick-ass woman, honestly, that I have known. So I suppose you could say that, these qualities of a female entrepreneur, they're in mine and my sister's blood too, because my sister's also an entrepreneur as well. She has her own business. So we have that sort of family trait of determination, and we're going to do this, that attitude, we're going to do this, and we're going to do it on our own because we can. And we have to remember that we're not imposters, because we can never be, because we're us. My grandma was her. You are you. Don't compare yourself to anyone else. And next time you're feeling insecure and anxious, or you're unsure of your ability to do this, to make a business and make a living doing something that you love, just think of Phyllis. Think of my grandma. She probably would have told you to just suck it up and get on with it. You know, she was so direct. When I was really little, she used to scare me a little bit, if I'm honest. You know, I used to bite my nails quite badly. And I remember on a Sunday when we used to go and see her, I used to be like so scared that she was going to check my nails, because she always did. And we'd turn up, and as soon as I get there, she'd go, show me your nails, Joanne. And I'd be like, get them out. And she'd go, have you been biting them? I'd be like, yes. She'd always have a go at me. And then she'd say, go and help yourself to the sweets. So we'd fill up our bags, you know, and then we'd run in the back and we'd sit on the floor and we'd eat them. And it was like the best Sunday ever. And I loved it. And she had this cat called Whiskey, who we used to love as well. I don't know, just these little memories. I think of my grandma and I think she was so strong. And that's something that I strive to be like as well. So think of Phyllis. That's what I was saying. Think of Phyllis next time you feel insecure, you know. And she would always say the word darling. She'd say, you know, darling, you can do this. You're more than capable. So that's what I want to say to you today, that you are more than capable. And I am here, whether it's on the podcast or the Facebook group, or you choose to speak to me one-to-one, whatever, I'm here, and I'm here to help and support you. I'm happy to be that person for you that will cheer you on and show you that you're capable of doing this. So I think I should start a hashtag, shouldn't I, called hashtag Be Like Phyllis. That could be the name of this episode. We'll see. Anyway, so on that note, you know, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to say that that's all really I wanted to say to you about imposter syndrome. I hope it's helped you in some way. I know that it's difficult when you're in your own head and it's your own business and you're not sure which way to turn. But just try your very best to break it all down. Try not to be perfect. Try not to get all your ducks in a row before you start something. Like, just start it. Even if it's not 100% there or 100% right, just do it. Because you might be surprised at how it goes and what feedback you get. And then things progress from there. Because otherwise we'll be waiting forever. If we waited for things to be perfect, we'd be waiting forever. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you want that extra support, you're welcome to join my Facebook group. Like I said, Her Handmade Hustle is on Facebook. If you search it under groups, it will come up. Lovely, like-minded community of women there. Welcome to join if you're not already a member. Just send me a request. You can get my free newsletter, which comes through on email every Monday. That's full of business advice. It's a different topic every week, depending on what I've been researching and what people have told me they want to find out about. So, you know, you're more than welcome to join up to that. You can access that on my website, which is herhandmadehustle.co.uk. There's a button on there that says sign up for the free weekly email newsletter. And I also offer services in the form of coaching. If you want some one-to-one support to help you get up and running for your business, feel free to drop me a message. I do like free half-hour chats as well, so we can have a chat, talk about things that are bothering you, things that you're feeling nervous about, which hopefully won't be imposter syndrome anymore. So you can go on there. You're welcome to book in for a free chat with me and we can have a talk. No obligation whatsoever. I just love meeting people and finding out about you and your business. So yeah, head over to the website. And I really hope, like I say, that you've got something out of this. Do let me know if you can. If you're able to subscribe to this podcast, that will be amazing. I'm really appreciative of everybody that has done so far. And I hope that it's lived up to the last one and it's been as useful. Please do let me know, like I say, because I love hearing from you and hearing everything that you've got to say. And that is it until next time. So have a lovely rest of the day or night, whatever it is that you're doing, and whatever time of day you're listening to this. And I will join you next time on my next episode of the Her Handmade Hustle Unplugged podcast. Bye.